Joining us now is Admiral James Stavridis, the NBC News chief international analyst, former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO. Well, Admiral, you've seen the drama coming from the Pentagon today. We should first point out that the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, he said that he was clearly limping. He said he's still recovering. He's having physical therapy, but he was very open about the ongoing investigation and the fact that basically he messed up.
Yeah, Lloyd Austin, whom I've known for decades, did what good leaders do and what men and women of integrity do. When they make a mistake, they admit it, they own it, they improve, they go forward, and any further action would be up to the president. And I think Lloyd Austin did exactly the right thing in coming forward now. He made a mistake earlier, but he's handled it as well as you possibly can at this point. I wish him well in his recovery. He's a fine military officer, and I think continues to serve the nation.
I think all of us wish him well. Interesting that the press corps there were wishing him well as well at the Pentagon today, although they've been very critical of his access, the lack of access that he has afforded them. Let's talk about the bigger issue, of course, which is what's happening right now in the region. They're taking their time. They're going to strike at a time and place of their choosing. And he pointed out that, as you know better than anyone, as the former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, that will depend on a lot of other factors, how people are moving around, reducing collateral damage, civilian deaths, as well as weather and, other conditions. But this has also permitted people to move, to get out, to evacuate some of these militias. So are they taking too long to retaliate?
These are military judgments that are being rendered minute by minute inside U.S. Central Command. By the way, Lloyd Austin's command when he was a four-star, so he knows this region extremely well. What's important here is that this is going to be a campaign, not a one-off, not a simple one-time precision-guided strike against a particular target. It's going to be an ongoing series of attacks, I think, against not only the Houthi Red Sea maritime threat that you were showing earlier, but also against these militias in Iraq and Syria. This will go on, I think, for a number of weeks and probably accelerate in terms of the hammer blows we are landing. At that point, Iran hopefully will take control of these militias and pull them back. Otherwise, Andrea, I think the United States will have to at least consider strikes against Iran directly. Let's hope we don't get there.
Well, there are a number of people in Congress, as you know, in both parties calling for exactly that. There have been more than 160 attacks against U.S. and international forces, and nothing seems to have deterred these Iran-backed militias.
Absolutely correct. And I think we're at the final exit before the tunnel, so to speak. We need to be communicating that directly to Iran. I think we are doing so. We need a very robust series of strikes. And by the way, not just against militias, but against Iranian Revolutionary Guards who are outside Iran conducting the training, the organizing, the equipping of these militias, this so-called axis of resistance. They are legitimate targets. If Iran does not listen, if the mullahs do not immediately cease and desist, then I, for one, would advocate strikes against Iranian sovereign soil. Let's hope, again, we don't get there.